The crisp bite of winter air, the crunch of fresh snow beneath your feet, the adrenaline rush of racing down a mountain, soaring through the air, or gliding across frozen terrain. For centuries, humans have embraced the cold, turning icy landscapes into arenas of speed, skill, and sheer exhilaration. From the elegance of figure skating to the high-octane chaos of ice hockey, and from the timeless traditions of skiing to the gravity-defying tricks of snowboarding, winter sports have captivated adventurers and audiences alike. But beyond the classic Olympic spectacles, there's a world of lesser-known, unconventional winter sports, like snow kiting, ice sailing, and even competitive snowball fighting. Today, we're diving deep into the history, evolution, and wild variants of winter sports, uncovering both the legendary and the obscure. So bundle up, grab your hot cocoa, and get ready for a frosty adventure. This is Beneath the Shadows. Yeah, and so thank you for joining me. My name is Travis Fenn. I'm your host today. I appreciate you being here and checking out this episode, whether you're a new listener or a returning listener. I really appreciate you no matter what. I just appreciate you being here and taking the time, and I really hope you enjoy the episode. We're focusing mainly on skiing and snowboarding today, the history of skiing and snowboarding as we come into it, but we are also, as mentioned, going to talk about a few other lesser-known and different winter sports, such as figure skating, ice hockey, and a few weird, unconventional snow kiting, luge, maybe a little bit of curling, couple of different things like that. We're going to talk about some crazy winter sports, mainly, like I said, focus on skiing and snowboarding. I snowboard myself. I would love to learn to ski sometime sooner than later here. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy getting out. It gives me something to do in the winter other than sit on my fucking fat ass and, hang at home. So really do enjoy getting out, especially when it's, a good temperature, maybe a little bit over 0 Fahrenheit. A little bit closer to maybe like 10 to 20 Fahrenheit with not much wind. Cruising for a day is great. If you get some when you're in there when there's a storm, it's fucking awesome. Love some fresh powder on the ground when I'm snowboarding. Don't have any huge resorts here in Michigan, unfortunately. There's a couple up north from where I'm at. I'm in the lower part of the Lower Peninsula, closer to Ann Arbor, Detroit. So I'm pretty much in the lower, eighth of the state, really close to Ohio. I get to Ohio quicker than I can get to most places in Michigan. Living down here, though, there's not a ton of options for snowboarding, for skiing. There are, some options, but they're all very small hills and generally nowadays pretty fucking pricey for what they offer. So I like going up north, about 3 hours up north. I go to carve a lot, which is in Cadillac, Michigan. It's like I said, it's about 3.5 hours from where I'm at in Ypsilanti, here at the Shadow Realm, my office studio here in Ypsilanti. But yeah, it's about 3.5 hours up north there. There's a ton of them. There's Treetops, the Highlands, Boyne, there's Nubs Knob, there's Cabernet, like I had mentioned. There's just so many of them up that way. And then even as you get into the Upper Peninsula, when you go across the Mackinac Bridge, you get into the Upper Peninsula, and there's great ones up there too. I know there's the Porcupine Ski Resort. There's a couple over in the western part there, closer to the Wisconsin and Minnesota borders, and there's one up, or two up, I think, in the Little Fin up top. There's Houghton. There's a nice resort or two in Houghton, and then further up you have Mount Bohemia, which is almost all the way up at the tip of the fin up there, so almost in Copper Harbor pretty much. And it's just a little ways out of there, but there's Mount Bohemia and Voodoo Mountain, which I think they're both the same company, maybe just a little bit further apart, or they're like separate sides of the mountain that they run a little bit differently. Been to Mount Bohemia before. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of backcountry. It's not great for snowboarders. It does work well for snowboarders if you have the skills to be able to do it, but some of the runs kind of lead you back out into the woods, and the only way to get out of there is hiking out, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but isn't always preferred if you're trying to go to, like resort style where you can ride down to the bottom, ride back up to the top, ride your board down to the bottom, ride back up to the top. Anyway, though, that's just a little bit about what I do, what I like, and, some snowboarding stuff there. But with that, let's dive into this fucking episode and get talking about skiing, snowboarding, and some other weird fucking winter sports. All right. All right, let's go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Skiing. All right. Skiing is one of the oldest forms of transport, dating back thousands of years. Evidence suggests that early humans used skis to traverse snowy landscapes long before they became a recreational or competitive activity. So, going back to prehistoric and early skiing times before the 1800s, it has some origins in Scandinavia and Asia. Archaeologists have discovered ancient ski fragments in Russia, Sweden, and Norway, which makes a lot of sense to me, honestly. Sweden and Norway in particular, they love their fucking skiing. I'm sure Russia does too, I just don't hear as much about it. Dating back as far as 6000 BCE. The oldest known ski fragment was found in Lake Sindor, Russia. So they do definitely get down in Russia. They've fucking been doing it for a long time. And is believed to be over 8,000 years old, which would make sense if it's around 6,000 BCE. Doing some shit with some skis back then, that's definitely over 8,000 years ago, which is crazy to think about how long skis have been in use and actually been a practical, useful and inventive, idea that really has helped. Early skis were made of wood and were primarily used for hunting and transportation. And that's the thing, they would use these skis to glide across and track animals. Some of these animals can move quite quickly, and definitely in the wintertime when it's snowy and fucking gross out, they just can't do it. They can't move that fast. You can't trek through a couple of feet of snow that's almost up to your waist faster than a fucking elk can get through it or some shit like that. So it's very important for them to be able to have some sort of transportation that can move them quickly and efficiently, and also semi-stealthily. So, they're not the loudest thing in the world. I'm sure that an animal that has decent hearing can hear some cracking of snow and some gliding activities or carving activities when you're using these skis. But generally, they're semi-quiet, semi-stealthy way of you transporting yourself and of managing and tracking an animal. So I think they'd be great for hunting. I know a lot of people even nowadays, if they hunt in the wintertime, if there's places where they hunt in the wintertime, they can definitely use skis, do a little cross-country type of thing. Really depends on the type of animal you're hunting and a few other factors like that. Obviously, if you have enough snow in the area, if the snow's decent enough, if it's deep enough to, I don't know. There's a lot of factors though to it. So definitely a good way to do some hunting. And transportation, obviously, they use sleds all the fucking time, use skis on the bottom of these sleds, and were able to transport goods without having to break their fucking backs entirely. They could use animals to pull these sleds to transport their goods. So if they ever had to move distance, which was oftentimes a move that had to be made due to resources and, other people in the territory, whatever it might be, whether it's an opponent or an obstacle of some sort that pushed you out, or it's, resources and you're just following like fucking buffalo or elk or whatever it might be, and you're just tracking food that is going to feed your village or family or whatever it may be. So definitely makes sense in that route too. Having transportation be a big part of using these skis on the bottom of sleds to be able to pull their goods throughout the country or the countryside, wherever they may fucking be. And they usually have to travel. A lot of people were nomadic back in those days and had to travel quite some ways. So that makes a lot of sense. Rock carvings in Norway from 4,500 BC depict figures using skis. The first written reference to skiing comes from China around 600 to 200 BCE, where historical texts describe the indigenous Altai, I think it's Altai, Altai people using ski-like wooden planks covered in horsehide for grip. And that's a classic thing nowadays too. They use skins for grip on skis, and I don't know if the skins are made from animals still, or if they're more, like a synthetic type of material, but additionally, hundreds of ski fragments that are 1,000 to 3,500 years old have been found in bogs in Sweden, Norway, and Finland. Norse mythology references Yolr, Euler? Norse mythology references Euler, a god associated with skiing. It's Ullr. Vikings used skis for efficient movement across snowy landscapes, and during the Middle Ages, skiing was a common means of travel in Scandinavia. In the 18th and 19th centuries, skiing evolved from a survival tool into a sport, particularly in Norway. The word ski comes from the Old Norse word skio, or ski. I think it's just pronounced ski. Shit. Yeah, I just can't remember. I think it's shio or she. It's pronounced like an sh. If I can remember correctly, I don't know if that is correct, but the word ski comes from the Old Norse word shio or she, meaning split piece of wood. Sondre Norheim, a Norwegian, is credited with revolutionizing skiing in the 1850s and 1860s by developing the telemark ski, which allowed for better control and turns. Around 1900, Matthias Zardarsky, an Austrian, adapted skiing for steeper, mountainous terrain, creating the basis of alpine skiing. The first recorded ski competition took place before that in Norway in 1843, while the first alpine ski race occurred in Austria in 1905. The Winter Olympics finally included cross-country skiing and ski jumping in the 1924 Olympics, cementing skiing's place in international competition. So people are skiing now. People are out here using skis for more than just transportation and hunting. They're using it not just to move their goods, but to move themselves in a way that is, fun and enjoyable and competitive in a lot of different ways. So skis have now been adapted to be able to be better controlled, to take on steeper terrains, and people are going to start using them for a lot of different competitions, and the sport is going to start growing immensely coming into the 20th century. And with the Olympics finally taking it on also, you will see the blooming of numerous ski resorts. There are going to be a couple that opened before this time. The first one in the United States, I believe, was 1914. But before that, the first the first ski resort was Saint Anton in Austria in 1901. Followed by others in Switzerland, Norway, and the U.S. But there is some speculation to this that one in Switzerland came before that, which is St. Moritz or Moritz. In Switzerland, this luxurious and iconic resort considers itself to be the world's oldest ski destination, as it officially started with winter tourism, I don't know why that's hard for me to say, in 1864. Though it wasn't considered a resort at the time, though it wasn't just for skiing, people did sound like they came there to do some skiing. While the extent of skiing by visiting winter tourists during this period is unclear, there's no doubt that people have been skiing here for many, many years. St. Moritz hosts the Winter Olympics. St. Moritz hosted the Winter Olympics already in 1928, so the second time they had skiing and stuff in the Winter Olympics, and was home to Switzerland's first ski school, opened in late 1929. So they hosted the Olympics. They started doing winter tourism, and 60 years later, finally, when skiing was becoming very popular, very known around the world as a sport, a competitive sport, they said, hey, we're going to host fucking skiing here. We're going to have the Winter Olympics here because we have the best skiing in the fucking world. And then right after that, they'd open the ski school and become very, very well known as a go-to destination for skiing and, gaining knowledge of skiing through ski schools. This would, blossom skiing, just push skiing further into the limelight, and the invention of ski lifts finally in the 1930s made skiing even more accessible to the public. Further technological advances would also continue pushing skiing forward and advancing skiing in so many ways. Metal edge skis in the 1930s came into the forefront. It really came to be a preferred version of the ski compared to wooden skis with no edges, or with no metal edges. At least they had edges, they were sharpened or whatever, they were pointed, slanted, angled, whatever, so you could cut into the snow. But with the metal edge skis, replacing the wooden skis, or at least replacing the edges there, it incredibly improved the performance that people were able to really be able to have and be able to take on. They took on, faster runs, steeper runs, now that they had more control with better ways to carve and to turn and, just balance. So it really helped out in so many different ways with pushing skiing even further into becoming an extreme and well-known and accessible sport for a lot of different people. So 1926, Austrian accountant and skier Rudolf Lettner developed the first ski with metal edges after a slide-for-life incident nearly killed him. It took him nearly a decade to figure out how to attach the metal edges to wooden skis. Metal edges held better on hard snow and ice, and they made skis stiffer and less likely to break, says Lowell Skoog, a Washington ski historian and co-founder of the Washington State Ski and Snowboard Museum. That was so hard for me to say. I don't know why. It's just the S's in there. So many ski. So many S's. Too many S's. All of these factors led to greater control at higher speeds. And now in the 1930s, like I mentioned, with these metal edges, people are, more control at higher speeds, greater angles, so they're taking on even steeper hills and able to take on just crazier and crazier terrain and push the limits even further. So as they develop from wooden skis into plastic and fiberglass skis, which are even more durable than wooden skis, with the metal edges, people are just going to start going fucking crazy. So let's dive into that, and we're going to, continue talking about skiing for quite a minute here before we get into snowboarding for the second half. And, as we finish up towards the end, it'll be a lot of nonsensical and lesser known sports that are a little crazy, a little weird. And some of them are semi-common, but some of them are like, I'd never fucking even considered something like that. So by the 1950s, or around the 1950s, fiberglass and plastic skis further advanced the skiing sport. And the development of snow grooming machines in the 1950s made ski resorts more reliable for recreation. Better, more level snow, at least. Love powder. I love powder so much, so I can't say that it's better snow technically, but at least more level snow and more reliably consistent snow. So you're not going to get, powder and then ice and then like a little fucking, actually like a piece, and then like fucking some more powder, more ice. It's not gonna range like that. With the snow grooming machines, they're able to make a more consistent run of snow or a piece of snow. So they're able to really push those boundaries and open up more areas for recreation and accessible skiing for more of the population. The 1960s and 1970s saw the rise of freestyle skiing, including moguls, aerials, and acrobatics. Extreme skiing also gained popularities in the 1980s, featuring steep descents and dangerous terrain. And let me tell you, extreme skiing is fucking wild, fucking crazy. Doing some cool wars and shit like that out in God knows what fucking mountain range you're in. Many people have died this way. It's one of the most dangerous aspects of skiing, or kinds of skiing, is doing extreme skiing and taking some of these 50-degree, 60-degree almost descents that can get your speed absolutely wild. Or, if you hit something wrong, you might cause an avalanche, or you might hit a patch of ice and tumble out, and then you're fucking either cartwheeling down the mountain or sliding down the mountain. And if you can't self-arrest and be able to stop yourself from sliding, whether that's with like an ice axe or some other fashion of, digging yourself into the ground, sometimes there's a 700,000-foot cliff that if you don't stop yourself, you're going to fucking fall off of. And chances of you surviving are very, very, very low. I think that some dude recently in the past few years fell like 320 feet or something off a cliff unintentionally. And he landed in a large pack of powder snow. Thankfully it was powder snow and not really, hard packed snow. And he actually survived. I don't know exactly what his injuries were, but I know he wasn't, he just got right up and was fucking fine. No, it was something a little bit more extreme than that, but he fell off a cliff and ended up in, a pack of powder, and thankfully that saved his life. Had to be dug out like ton of different people. He was in like 12 feet of snow or some shit, and I think that was similar to the last dude who actually tried to do it when he was trying to break the world record for the largest or highest cliff jump on a snowboard, but or skis. I don't know if it was snowboard or skis, but either way, people are wild. People are wild with the shit that they decide to do, and I mean, things that can happen while you're doing some of these extreme kind of sports. I get it. I get wanting to take those risks, but some of the places that people go doing some of these is just crazy to me. I enjoy some tree runs. I enjoy going pretty fast down the mountain, getting to 40, 50 plus miles an hour on my snowboard, but holy shit, some of these people go so fast on skis. When you watch Olympic or X Games skiing competitions, particularly Olympic, because they have more of the downhill speed skiing type of thing. God damn, some of them get so fast. I mean, you're pushing 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour on your fucking skis. And back in the day when they did speed skiing, like strictly speed skiing, it was well over 100. You could push well over 100 miles an hour. And that, like, over 200 kilometers per hour, over 100 miles an hour. So fucking crazy how fast you can get on some of these different types of skis and different types of snowboards and things of that, different kinds of snow apparatuses that they have nowadays. Just wild. Skiing has evolved far beyond its early use as a means of transportation and military movement. Today, two of the most adrenaline-fueled forms of skiing, freestyle and extreme skiing, push the boundaries of what's possible on snow-covered terrain. So freestyle skiing, what's that? It's an aerial and stylistic form of skiing that incorporates jumps, tricks, and high-energy maneuvers. It blends elements of acrobats, gymnastics, and traditional skiing, making it one of the most visually exciting forms of the sport. So, it's awesome to watch people fucking do crazy, 900s, 1080s, 1440s, whatever it fucking might be. Do some flips, do some goddamn, different tricks, back flips, front flips, whatever it might be. They're just doing some crazy, high energy, awesome, this, that. Really makes you want to keep your eye on it and continue watching it until they crash. And then you're like, oh, fuck. Damn, that looks like it hurt. And I'll tell you, some of the crashes that happen in not just Olympic skiing, but downhill skiing or slope style skiing or whatever it might be. Like if you watch the FIS World Championship skiing stuff, some of those they look fucking gnarly. There's some crazy ones that have happened in the Olympics, though. I'm going to talk about one dude later that, holy hell, I feel so bad for him. So bad for what happened to him, and just crazy. Skiers began experimenting with tricks, jumps, and non-traditional movements on the slopes, leading to the creation of the first aerial and mogul competitions in the late 1960s. Freestyle skiing emerged in the 1960s, largely inspired by the popularity of surfing and skateboarding. By the 1970s, freestyle skiing had developed into a recognized sport, but it was often considered rebellious and dangerous by traditional ski organizations, so they didn't want you really doing it because chances of you getting injured are much higher when you're fucking around doing jumps, doing spins, fucking flips, and whatever else it might be. Chances are pretty fucking high that you're going to get injured at some point, break something, tear something, smash into fucking something, whatever it might be. You're gonna get fucked up in some way or another, and they didn't really condone those activities as much in the 1970s. Moving forward, it would get more and more recognized and become, a bigger thing, and really become something that is just allowed at most places. So the International Ski Federation, the FIS, officially recognized freestyle skiing in 1979, implementing safety regulations and structured competition formats. So finally recognized by the FIS, the International Ski Federation, and is able to be, kind of pushed into the sight of the public a little bit more and accepted by more ski resorts and ski regulars. People who are traditional kind of ski people would see it a little bit more as a big part of the sport, and not just something that these rebellious assholes are doing out here. The first official World Cup freestyle event was held in 1980 with disciplines including moguls, aerials, and ballet skiing. Interesting. I don't know, ballet skiing, like doing spins or something, or if you're actually like doing some dance shit on skis. I have no clue. I didn't realize I didn't look into that. By the 1990s, freestyle skiing was added to the Winter Olympics, with moguls making their debut in 1992 and aerials in 1994. So really coming into popularity, becoming such a popular sport that the Winter Olympics are taking it on, and really accepting the different styles as part of skiing, as well as, generic cross-country and things of that nature that are a little less intense and explosive and dangerous. The things that are a little bit more common and have been around for 100+ years are alongside these newer events that have been around for 30 or 40 years. So finally, the more exciting, I think, aspect of the Olympics has arrived in the 90s and has really pushed itself into popularity and really become such a well-known thing that it's recognized around the world at this point. So let's talk about the different key disciplines of freestyle skiing, the different kind of kinds of freestyle skiing, the different aspects and, like I said, disciplines that people practice in freestyle skiing. So let's look at those, a little bit into them, so we can understand a little bit more of what these people are doing. And then we'll look at the other one that we talked about, which is extreme skiing, and we'll talk about some information about that and some aspects of extreme skiing as well. So first off, there are moguls. A mogul course consists of large bumps called moguls placed in a rhythmic pattern. So a course will have them in a pattern. If you go to a ski resort, sometimes they have mogul sections, and those are less rhythmic, I would say. A lot of the times it's just naturally pushed together snow that has happened due to numerous skiers or snowboarders carving in the same area. It creates these bumps of snow that they've pushed with their board or skis that when it happens numerous times in different areas in a small section, can create these bumps that are moguls, and you kind of bounce off of one into another, and it's harder to maneuver around unless you're kind of used to them. If you don't have experience with them, it's harder than it looks. I mean, if you're pretty nimble and you can move around on a snowboard like you're fucking walking regularly, you're probably not going to have any issues with them. But someone who maybe is less flexible or doesn't have as much experience with, riding goofy or whatever it might be, it might not be as easy as it seems to go, off of one bump into another, dodge this one, go around that one. A lot of movement, quick movement, and judgment that you have to make going through mogul courses. Skiers navigate the moguls while performing aerial tricks off of 2 designated jumps in the actual mogul competition. The sport requires a combination of technical skiing, balance, and aerial acrobatics. And then there is a separate aerial competition. Skiers hit a jump at high speeds and perform multiple flips or spins before landing. Olympic aerial skiers reach heights of up to 50 feet or 15 meters in the air. Precision and technique are critical to executing tricks safely. Obviously, practice is how you get the precision and technique down. So yeah, definitely run the risk of breaking a bone or tearing a ligament by doing some of these aerial tricks, hitting these jumps, flying, so high into the air and then coming down. If you don't land correctly, you might fuck up yourself pretty good. There's ski cross, number 3. Ski cross is a race style event where multiple skiers compete down a course with jumps, turns, and obstacles. So it's, it's a race style. So you have 4 people competing. It's, you're going through this course, you push off from the top, and it's just try to cruise as fast as you can over these speeds, bumps, jumps, turns, dodging obstacles, and going through trees and whatever else might fucking be, and try to be the first one to the finish line. It's a classic race style event. And there's another one for snowboarding called border cross, and it's it seems like it would be a lot of fun. It seemed like the kind of thing that I would like out of all the events. The only thing I wouldn't really like about it is they ride real close together. Real close together. And I'd be like, I'm just going to shove you the fuck out of my way or hit your ski or something. Like, I'm going to fucking crash. You're going to crash. I'm going to crash. It's not going to be good. Someone's going to bump into me or fuck up my board or something. I don't know. This particular event was added to the Winter Olympics in 2010. Then there is half-pipe skiing, which most of you kind of probably know about if you've ever watched like the X Games before. Snowboarding in particular had the half-pipe snowboarding, but half-pipe skiing is the same thing, just on skis. It involves performing tricks inside a U-shaped half-pipe, just as it is with snowboarding or goddamn skateboarding. Couldn't think of it for a second. The skiers launch out of the pipe's walls to perform aerial maneuvers before re-entering. It became an Olympic event in 2014, so not too long ago, just over 10 years ago, finally became an Olympic event for skiing, at least. I think snowboarding may have already had it, or at least, in the X Games was a big part of it. It's something that's been around for quite a while, the half-pipe skiing, but wasn't as recognized as it was with snowboarding for a little while. Then there is slope-style skiing. Skiers perform tricks on a downhill course featuring rails, jumps, and obstacles. Like skateboarding, technical difficulty and style are key scoring factors. Slopestyle was introduced in the same year as half-pipe skiing was in the 2014 Winter Olympics. So from freestyle skiing here to extreme skiing, which is the art of pushing the limits. Extreme skiing, also known as big mountain or free ride skiing, is one of the most dangerous forms of the sport, as I had mentioned. It involves descending steep, rugged, and often unpredictable backcountry terrain, where skiers face risks such as avalanches, cliffs, and crevasses. I didn't even think about the crevasses, damn it! Forgot to mention that earlier. Yeah, crevasses, big fucking thing in the just even when you're skiing at resorts in like mountain country, the Alpines, the Swiss mountains, out here in the western part of the United States and some of those areas, just really crazy amounts of crevasses that can open up or could open up. There's a lot of them that you can see as you're riding. You'll go over some areas you don't even know you're going over a crevasse because you're on a little fucking snow bridge, land bridge type of thing that you're crossing over. It could collapse at any time, and you might even be on like a little fucking, depending on where you're riding, like a little cornice that's hanging over a little. You never know. So many different things that could happen, and sketchy areas that could show up when you're riding in some of these big mountains, these gigantic mountain ranges, and coming down from 15,000, 14,000 fucking feet up there. You're up at whatever it might be. What's that? Like it's like 5,000 meters or something like that. Some of these places go up to 6,000 meters. I mean, people have done some crazy shit though. So where did extreme skiing kind of originate? Where did people decide to go, hey, if I can go down, this hill that's pretty steeply angled, that's, made for this, why can't I go down that mountain that's also very, very steeply angled that is not made for this at all? They didn't no mountain wants this to have this happen. And, there are so many more risks up there. Why can't I be up there doing this? Why can't I cause an avalanche and fall into a crevasse? That just sounds great. Let's go do that. So why did people decide to do that? Extreme skiing originated in Chamonix, France, where pioneers like Sylvain Saudon began tackling extreme steep descents in the 1960s and 1970s. The term extreme skiing became popularized in the 1980s when American skiers like Scott Schmidt and Glenn Plake helped bring the sport into mainstream ski culture. Warren Miller's ski films played a major role in popularizing extreme skiing, showcasing daring runs down remote mountains. So when Warren Miller released some of his ski films, it really helped push it, like I said before, into the limelight or into the forefront, got more people able to see these crazy ski runs that people were doing in mountain ranges that most of the viewers had never even fucking heard of before, and these mountain areas that people may have never even fucking been up to before, or some mountaineers may have been up there, but a skier had never even fucking touched it before. So around this time in the 1980s is when first descents on a lot of these slopes started really fucking pushing. A lot of people were like, I can do it here. I've seen people do it at this place. I want to go somewhere new. Let me climb a fucking mountain as high as I can. Let me summit this mountain and let me ride my skis all the way back down to the bottom, to base camp, to wherever the fuck I need to go. Let me be the first person to do this crazy fucking shit. So what are some key aspects of extreme skiing? So obviously the main, I would say, aspect of extreme skiing would be steep terrain. Extreme ski runs often have 45 to 60 degree slopes, and though it may not sound that crazy, that is fucking incredible. Incredible that people are able to go down that and still maintain control, because if you get going straight down that, the chance of carving and slowing down and not catching an edge or catching some ice or slipping out is so low. Like, it's such a incredible thing to be able to have body control and ski control, to be able to hold yourself against that mountainside without slipping out at a 60 degree fucking angle, because there's just such a minimal amount of margin for error in that case that it's such a risk. It's so hard to be able to do that. So to me it's incredible to be able to do that. I've went down some semi-steep slopes, but I mean nothing probably longer than or larger than 30 something degrees, maybe 40ish. I've went down something that was semi-steep, but like that seems crazy still, and it wasn't that far by any means if I did go down something like that. And good for people to be able to fucking do that, but it's just wild to think about. Some of the famous extreme skiing locations include Alaska's Chugach Mountains, it might be Chugach Mountains, the Swiss Alps, and the French Alps. So definitely a couple different places that people like to ski. We're going to talk a little bit later about the French Alps and one particular place up there. But for now, let's go to number 2, backcountry skiing. Unlike skiing resorts, extreme skiers venture into ungroomed, unpatrolled wilderness areas. So these areas, they require expert knowledge of snow conditions, avalanche safety, and navigation. You can get lost out there. You can fucking cause an avalanche, which could be terrible because depending on who knows you're out there or how many people know you're out there, or if you have, a sat phone or a beacon, an avalanche beacon, if you don't have some of these crucial things, you could die very easily out in the backcountry. You could die very easily doing skiing. You could die, numerous ways doing some of these more extreme sports or snow sports. And whether it's skiing, snowboarding, whether it's doing something like a few others that we're going to talk about later, there's so many different ways that you can perish. You can find, your last breath when you're going down a mountain and you accidentally slip up and you lose control and you run into a fucking tree. Or you could fall off a cliff, or you could get buried in an avalanche, or you could run into another skier or snowboarder, or you could hit a grooming machine or some sort of pole, or you could... There's just so many ways, have a heart attack, cardiac arrest. You could hit your head and be fine for a little while afterwards and then end up dying. There's so many ways, so many different possibilities of danger that come with a sport like skiing. So extreme skiers not only like the steep descents, but they like cliff drops and jumps. They like going big. Big is the word for extreme skiing. Extreme skiers often launch off natural cliffs, performing flips or free-falling before landing on deep snow. Skiers have been known to jump from heights of 50 feet or more. And like I said earlier, there is a couple of dudes, at least when I looked it up, I remember there's the most recent one. He didn't mean to, though. He fell off a cliff that was like 300-something feet and lived. And then the one that did mean to and tried to break the record or was breaking the record was like 200-something feet. And it was just crazy. And he was buried in like 12 feet of snow or some shit like that when he finally was dug up at the bottom. And then obviously, as I already mentioned, the avalanche risk is extremely high. Backcountry extreme skiers face a high risk of avalanches, making avalanche training and safety gear like beacons, probes, and airbags essential. Many extreme skiers take courses in avalanche survival and mountain safety, and there's different levels of that too. There's a beginner, an intermediate, and then expert kind of thing. And you definitely, if you're going to be skiing in the backcountry, off of a resort, off terrain, off of some crazy obstacles or down some steep mountains, let someone know what you're doing, obviously, for one, like you should always do with many things, most things, you should let someone know what you're doing, or at least let someone, know that, hey, you should let someone know what you're doing. But also with that, it comes, you need to have knowledge of your surroundings, of noises, of the feel of the snow, of the way it looks, of the air, the air conditions, whether it's the pressure, whether it's the temperature, whether it's the humidity, whether it's the dew point. There's so many different factors that affect the snow, as well as just you riding on it and carving through it. Sometimes even you'll have hard packed snow on the top, and you'll have this light, fluffy cake layer underneath, and that cake layer could fucking slide out at any point. It's not really held in place, but it's stable there for a minute. But when you start carving on top of it, it could push it off and release some of that tension and that friction and cause an avalanche. So a huge risk that people take when they go backcountry off the beaten path type of thing. When they do that, they really push the risk of avalanches much, much greater than you would find at just a natural resort that has groomed runs, or runs that have been ran over numerous times by many different people skiing and snowboarding that day. So as skiing gained popularity in numerous different disciplines and aspects, it also came to the forefront when extreme sports were really starting to push onto television and make themselves more known in the entertainment world in that sense. So the X Games, as it premiered in the 1990s, 1997, I think it was, it helped bring extreme skiing to a broader audience, particularly in the free ride and big air competitions. So some of these more visually stimulating competitions that they have, it really push those into the forefront and saw a huge audience of millions of people watching these sporting events and influencing the generation to come to try out some more extreme styles of these sports, or of these competitions, or of these moves that some of these people do. Someone sees someone do it and they just want to go bigger. There's always that person out there. So the Freeride World Tour, founded in 2008, became the premier global competition for extreme skiing, featuring unpredictable natural mountain terrain. And it's pretty cool to watch some of these people go down these mountains, or these courses, or these different areas that they pick out doing some of these world tours. It's really cool to see. And some of the crashes, like I said earlier, people get fucking ragdolled down a mountain where they're doing like cartwheels unintentionally as they got shit whipped off their skis. It's crazy sometimes. And I mean, you'll see yard sales all fucking day, which is when someone crashes and, their skis go somewhere, their poles go somewhere, their helmet comes off, their gloves come off, their jacket gets halfway ripped off. When that kind of thing happens, that's a yard sale. So happens quite a bit in extreme skiing when there are gnarlier crashes. Extreme skiing continues to be featured in action sports films such as Teton Gravity Research, Red Bull Media, and Matchstick Productions. And yeah, I was looking at a lot of the Teton Gravity Research videos on YouTube. There's a lot of awesome videos that they have on there, a lot of different jumps and, top 5 this, top 5 that, crazy run here, crazy run there, some crashes and things of that nature, a lot of different videos that TGR does. And along with that, obviously Red Bull has every extreme sport locked down, and they do something with all of them, and they have a great production team. They make some awesome videos also. So check those out if you're interested in seeing kind of what extreme skiing is and what it has to offer, or check out some of the FIS, the World Ski Federation, or World Ski whatever it is. Do check that out too. There are some videos from them on there, and that features a lot of extreme downhill mountain skiing like that. Also, like I said earlier, we're going to talk about a place in France, and if you look up videos from there, there's some cool videos also that are, some are less extreme, some are just as extreme, a little bit of both, as there is some some guides, some tours that you can do that are not as crazy with, downhill at least. Like, they take a long time. You might have to do some maneuvering through some kind of sketchy areas, but generally you're going to just be kind of cruising downhill, stopping here, stopping there, enjoying the scenery, the mountains and shit like that. But As the X Games and the Olympics gathered skiing into their curriculum or into their activities, what would become of it, and what did they offer for for the athletes of this sport, for the people who are really disciplined in the sport and really wanted to show that they had what it fucking took to be the best in the world? Skiing has evolved from traditional alpine sport into a high adrenaline competition showcased in both the X Games and the Winter Olympics. While the Winter Olympics represents the pinnacle of structured, globally recognized competition, the X Games thrives on extreme sports culture, pushing the limits of skiing with daring tricks and innovation. The X Games, founded by ESPN in 1995, I think the first one was technically 1997, maybe, though. It was somewhere in the 90s, mid to late 90s there. This would revolutionize skiing by embracing extreme and freestyle disciplines. Unlike the traditional Olympic format, the X Games focused on innovation, style, and high-risk maneuvers, making them the ultimate stage for skiers looking to push the boundary. So people are like, I need more extreme versions of this. I need to do more spins, more flips, more rails, more jumps, more everything. I need more of it, more speed, whatever it might be. I need more crazy fucking hills. I need more bigger ski jumps, everything. This is what the X Games really what was there for. As I already kind of talked about some of these, but big air athletes launched off of massive jumps and performed complex aerial tricks. Slopestyle, a downhill course with a mix of rails, jumps, and features where skiers performed tricks. Superpipe, competitors performed in a 22-foot halfpipe going airborne above the walls. And knuckle huck, which I didn't actually hear of this one before. I'd never watched it or heard of it before, but it makes sense because it was introduced in the X Games in 2020. Athletes launch off the knuckle of a jump rather than traditional takeoff points. It encourages creativity and technical skill over traditional judged formats, and it is more of a style event than a pure competition. So more just like show off what you can do than just like, hey, I'm doing this. This is how many points this gets for me doing this thing correctly, landing properly, whatever it might be. It's just like go out and show your style, show your fucking pizzazz, show you got that fucking what it takes to really keep audiences, visually interested. Very, just looking for interesting stylistic tricks and features for that part of the competition. So the X Games would help popularize freestyle and extreme skiing globally. It created new superstars like Heinrich Harlaw, Candide Torvex, and Alex Hall. And it pushed skiing to new limits, leading to the Olympic adaptation of events like slopestyle and halfpipe. And yeah, let's talk about the Olympic side of this. When did the Olympics adapt skiing and different styles of skiing into their events that they have? When did they allow these events to, first happen? And when did they become so big that they actually had to accept them into the Olympic sporting curriculum? Skiing has been part of the Winter Olympics since the 1920s, evolving over the decades to include freestyle, extreme, and race-based events. Unlike the X Games, the Olympics focuses on precision, technical mastery, and traditional sporting values. So not as extreme as the X Games is. Alpine skiing was brought into the Olympics in 1936. Alpine skiing is a speed discipline that includes slalom, giant slalom, super G, and downhill. Athletes race down set courses with gates, aiming for the fastest time. The Super G and downhill events focus on speed, while slalom and giant slalom events test technical control, as well as speed. Obviously, you're still trying to get the best time overall, but you can get penalized if you're not technically perfect while you're doing the slalom and giant slalom events. So freestyle skiing events, the ones that I've been talking about a little bit more, were added from 1992 to the present. As I mentioned before, moguls were added in 1992. Aerials were added in 1994, which is where skiers launch off a massive ramp and perform flips and twists and different, tricks in the air. It requires air awareness and precision landings, so you got to be very precise and you got to practice. It's the only way you're going to get better with a sport, especially something like skiing or snowboarding. You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to fall quite a few times before you can stay up and stay steady and be able to do some of these tricks and different aspects. Even be able to just ride down a fucking mountain, you're gonna have to fall quite a few times before you can just cruise down and enjoy your ride down a mountain. So then there's ski cross, I had mentioned before, was added in 2010. halfpipe skiing in 2014, along with slopestyle skiing in 2014. And then the newest event that was added was big air skiing in 2022. This was added due to X Games influence, so something that the X Games kind of originated with, where skiers perform massive single jump tricks. So they go off, like a fucking ski jump, if you kind of think of it like that. It's not exactly that, but it's a huge, huge jump. And do whatever tricks they think are fucking the way to do it. Flips and twists and mick twists and mick flips and double dutches and whatever else they can do in the air while they're flying off this jump. It's judged on innovation, technical difficulty, and execution, as most of these events are, but you got to be doing something that hasn't been really done before. You got to throw a 1440, you got to throw a fucking five turn fucking 1880 or whatever the hell it is. You got to be able to 1800. It'd be 1800, which would be like, yeah, five spins, yeah. You got to do something like that. You got to do something absolutely absurd. You got to do something that hasn't been really thought of or tried too many times before. So both the X Games and the Olympics have played crucial roles in shaping modern skiing. They've served as proving grounds for progression. They've constantly pushed the limits of freestyle and extreme skiing, and the Olympics have provided global legitimacy and recognition to the sport. There's been many skiers and snowboarders who have both done X Games and Olympics. There's people who have won for both, gotten gold medals in both, or medaled in both, proving that both platforms contribute to skiing's evolution. Whether it's the high-flying acrobatics of big air or the speed and precision of alpine skiing, the competitions continue to define the future of the sport. So competition is the biggest aspect. It's like you're looking to get to the top of the sport, you have to do competitive fucking skiing. You have to be able to take on other people in the same disciplines of the sport that you're learning and be able to show them that, hey, I can do it as good or better than you can over and over and over again. So let me fucking rock it. And within those, there's freestyle and extreme skiing, which have both represented two of the most dynamic, high adrenaline disciplines in the sport of skiing. While you have halfpipes and slopestyle courses, you have extreme skiing, which pushes the limits in its rugged, dangerous, and usually life-threatening terrain. So there's been a lot of people who have died doing especially extreme skiing, while deaths are kind of less common or less well-known in freestyle and, trick aspects of the sport. So many people have slipped out, fallen off a fucking mountain, and just died in so many different ways. And that's kind of how we're going to end the skiing section of this. We're going to talk about just a couple of people. So growing up, I watched the X Games, the Olympics a lot. When you think of alpine skiing, I always thought of Lindsey Vonn. She was a beautiful blonde woman who was doing skiing at such an incredibly high level that she, pushed the boundaries of what was possible, and she was able to win so many different medals, and it's still able to rock a lot of that energy that she put out there. She's still able to do that nowadays, even after having a pretty crazy crash in 2017 or 2018 where she tore some ligaments or broke a leg or something like that. Even after that kind of injury or those kind of setbacks that happen, she's still able to rock it out. And I always thought of her as being when I thought of skiing, it was definitely one of the people I knew growing up, or coming into high school and stuff. Definitely one of the people that stood out in the skiing, the sport of skiing. And then there's others like Doug Coombs. Doug Coombs was known for a long time as a world champion extreme skier. He was in the 90s sometimes considered the best skier in the world, and the best skier in extreme skiing. And he did so many different things between Alaska, between France, between Jackson Hole. He had so many different ski schools. He was able to teach so many people and originate and become the first descent on so many different lines. And he, unfortunately, in 2006, fell off a cliff. Just as I had mentioned, he was trying to rescue another skier named Chad Vanderham, and Chad had fallen off a cliff. It's rumored between 700 and 1,500 feet is how far they fell, and Doug tried to get over to the edge of the cliff further and yelled back to the other people he was with to get a rope. And unfortunately, just as what happened with Chad, which is he hit an icy area, so his skis slipped out, the same thing would happen with Doug, and Doug would fall to his death in La Grave, France. And La Grave looks like a beautiful, beautiful fucking place to go. Incredibly, it sits in the French Alps. It has this incredible gondola system. I don't even know how this thing fucking works, because the one section raises over, it's like 5,000 feet or something. It has an elevation rise, and there's no supporting towers. It's just the two lines, the top and the bottom, which seems super fucking sketchy, but I don't know. It seems incredible to go out there and to ski. If you look on YouTube, you can find a lot of different videos of people skiing different sections of it, in different areas in the mountains there. And you can see, you know, rides up, rides down. You can see like someone like Joe Vallone, who does some extreme skiing also and snowboarding, and you could see him ride with a couple different people on days in the mountains there in La Grave, France. So I would check that out if you're interested in those kind of things too. He does some really cool videos. I can't remember if it's with like Epic. I don't think it was Epic. I can't remember what it was called, but someone on YouTube. Look up Joe Vallone or look up La Grave, France skiing, and you'll find some real cool shit on there. So. And now that we're done, and now that we're done with the long history of skiing, let's bounce into the history of snowboarding before taking a look at a few different kind of off the beaten path, off the usual. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's the lesser known is really what I'm going for. It's some lesser known sports of winter. But let's look at snowboarding first and the history of snowboarding. It's a little bit shorter than skiing, has not been around as long, and we'll look at that real quick before we dive into those lesser known sports. Got the main marks after that, and then conclusion down the line. Way down there. You can see it, you know, quite a ways. If you look in the distance out there, if you look out there, way out there, come on, keep going. Yeah, that's that dot out there. Yeah, that's conclusion. That's the final takeaways. All right, so snowboarding. Where the fuck did it come from? Why the hell did someone decide to take two skis and, you know, kind of put them together and ride that down as a single unit? What the fuck is that? Snowboarding is a relatively modern sport, definitely modern, originating in the 1960s, but its roots can be traced back to earlier forms of surfing and skiing. So in the late 19th century and early 20th century, snow surfing was kind of a thing. Some historians point to Turkish and Chinese cultures using single-board sleds for gliding over the snow in the 1800s. In the 1920s and the 1930s, children in the U.S. would tie their feet to wooden planks and slide down hills. So, you know, a single plank that they stood sideways on, they would tie their feet to them, and they would kind of ride down or slide down these hills standing up on this wooden plank. But that would really pale in comparison to the snurfer, the fucking snow surfer. Finally, the first snowboard-like invention that came out in 1965. Sherman Poppin, an engineer from Muskegon, Michigan, which is on the west side of the state on Lake Michigan or over that way, created the snurfer, the snow surfer, in 1965 for his children. It was a wooden board with a rope for steering. So it's, you know, squared off at the end, and then it comes up and it kind of, you know, slants in at the front of it, has the nose tilted up, but comes into a point at the front, has it tilted up with a little hole in it that has a rope tied that you can hold on to with a handle. And you can look them up. They still make them. They still make these snurfers. They were originally made here in Michigan, and I think it's kind of cool that snowboarding-like inventions kind of originated here. I mean, there was this and that, but the first mainstream invention that was snowboard-like originated here in Michigan. It's pretty cool to think about. The snurfer became commercially successful, and organized competitions emerged in the late 1960s, and these competitions, these snurfers, really gave people new ideas, and new innovations started happening because of that. And there were two main people that really pushed the boundaries of what they could do with these innovations. So the first would be Jake Burton Carpenter in Burton Snowboards in the 1970s. Burton would improve his snurfer by adding bindings and better materials, turning it closer to a true snowboard. Burton Snowboards would be founded in 1977, becoming the leading snowboarding company at the time. Especially, it's still one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one in the world. And then Tom Sims in competitive snowboarding. He was a skateboarder who developed his own snowboard designs in the late 1970s, pushing the sport more into the mainstream. By the 1980s, snowboarding had gained a rebellious countercultural identity similar to skateboarding. So very connected and intertwined almost. Skateboarders would, skate during the nice season, snowboard during the wintertime, and it gave them the same feel, the same kind of control that they had, and they were able to really push a similar kind of cultural identity onto both of those sports, as they were a lot of the same people doing both of them. So snowboarding became more of a mainstream sport as the 90s approached into the 90s, and as it became more accepted at places like ski resorts, because many ski resorts had banned snowboarding in the 1980s, but by the 1990s, as snowboarding continued to gain popularity, they began to embrace it, to allow snowboarders into these resorts, and to, obviously financially gain from having these people come to their different places as well. Halfpipes and terrain parks were introduced, influenced by skateboarding culture. So just as I mentioned before, they really had a lot of similarities where people were like, hey, it's a board, it's a very similar style of riding to skateboarding, and I want to do similar things that I can do with a skateboard with this snowboard. So let's make halfpipes, let's make terrain parks, let's start doing flips and tricks and grinds and different, kickers and whatever else it might be. Snowboarding became an Olympic sport in the 1998 Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan. Events included the giant slalom and halfpipe. So they had a trick event, the halfpipe, and then they had the technical event with the giant slalom. Both were, unique, very unique in their own way, and they've only pushed to become more impactful since then. So, people are trying to go bigger, trying to go bolder, but also trying to make their own statement, whether it's with the things that they do, whether it's the things they wear, whether it's the tricks that they do. They're trying to make a statement in some way or another also. And that really got pushed forward. It really got brought forward as modern innovations came in. Advancements in snowboard technology included lighter materials, improved flexibility, and improved performance. New styles emerged, including big air, slopestyle, and backcountry freeriding. And that was really pushing into the late 90s. In the 90s, I would say, is when those became more popularized. But people in the 80s were doing these things also. People were going off of jumps. People were riding down mountains in the backcountry off of fucking, trying to think what the word is, out of bounds. There we go. Out of the boundaries of resorts. They were riding down mountains that they hiked up or, rode up on a different thing. And it really just gained popularity in the 90s, and these different events emerged because of that. So there was always a rivalry between skiing and snowboarding, and the coexistence didn't always work very well. And even nowadays, there's always like a little, this and that, like skiing versus snowboarding type of thing. But in the 80s and 90s, it was really like snowboarders versus skiers. It was really one or the other. They often clashed, with ski resorts banning snowboards, as I had mentioned. By the 2000s, though, both sports had gained a mutual respect, with many athletes cross-training in both disciplines. And that's something that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode here. I snowboard. I really want to learn to ski. I think it would be beneficial for me in numerous ways to not only understand skiers, but also be able to ski myself. I think it would be better for my muscles and my bones, being able to focus on going straight down rather than being turned sideways, leaning one way or the other. Being able to lean forward or backwards and standing, with my legs parallel to each other and not, sideways to each other would probably help a little bit too. And yeah, nowadays, snowboarding has become so popular. It's featured in the X Games. It's featured in the Olympics. It's such a big aspect of winter sports. And there's so many people that, have embraced snowboarding for what it is. And it's become such a popular thing. There's so many different resorts that offer, this or that for snowboarding. And I think it's really good that people can get along, that snowboard and ski, and learn from each other and understand the disciplines that come with skiing and snowboarding, these different terrains, and can really benefit from each other. And, there's been a ton of different snowboarders throughout history. There's been a lot of popular ones like Shaun White or Red Bull athlete Travis Rice, who does a lot of different backcountry freestyle riding kind of shit in particular. And then there's like the newer generation closer to my age. I'm 29 this year, and there's some people who were born, a few years after me, like 2000. Chloe Kim was born, and she's crushed it. She's from Mammoth, California, and has absolutely crushed snowboarding in so many different ways, won a lot of different medals already. And she was at one point the youngest athlete to win an X Games gold medal, and she's really crushed it in the past couple of years. She's done a lot of different stuff for snowboarding. There's just been so many numerous snowboarders, and they're only getting younger and younger with the things that they're able to accomplish. You know, the age for youngest X Games gold medalist was just broken in the past couple of years, and we'll talk about her in not too long from now. In the main marks, we'll mention her. And we'll mention a few other people as well. There's just been so many different snowboarders throughout history, and the ability to tackle snowboarding in different ways is really cool. It's really cool that it developed from the mid to late 60s and has developed in the past 50 plus years into what it's become today, and has become so popular for so many different people throughout the United States and throughout the world even. And skiing is definitely still the preferred one. I would say it's still the most popular snow sport when it comes to skiing versus snowboarding, but it has to be much more even compared to what it would be, say, in the 80s or the 90s, when it was starting to gain popularity but hadn't really plateaued or leveled off at all. And nowadays it's really leveled off. I mean, if you look at numbers, it's from the 80s to the 90s, snowboarding was rising. It was like the increase percentage each year was like fucking 10 or 15% or something like that. The amount of new people who would come in and would try it and would, be snowboarders, quote unquote. And nowadays it's like less than 1%. Every year there might be some new people who try it or who continue to snowboard after that fact. It's kind of ridiculous and has definitely leveled off, if not dropped, in the past 15 to 20 years. I would say that since COVID, maybe more people have gotten out and tried different things and tried new stuff, and it's a discipline that, if you go on a day that isn't terribly busy to a resort, you can still have kind of some distancing, some spatial distancing, social distancing, while still being able to enjoy an activity with people around you. So there's a lot of different popular ski and snow resorts in the United States, though. Some of them include Aspen, Snowmass in Colorado, which obviously is one of the biggest ones in the entire world and has, I believe, held the Winter Olympics at one point or another, maybe multiple times. It's a world-famous resort with 4 mountains: Aspen, Snowmass, Highlands, and Buttermilk. Mammoth Mountain, California, which is in Mammoth, and offers a variety of terrain, including black, double black, blue, and green runs. And if you know anything about that, green runs are going to be your most simple runs, beginner runs kind of thing. Blue or intermediate. Black is your more expert level or hard level. And double black would be like your expert or extreme kind of levels. Steeper, longer, more speed, more obstacles, more possibility of you falling on your fucking face and getting an injury. So just keep that in mind too. If you want to try snowboarding or skiing, get out there. Fucking make sure you bundle up. Make sure you have an insulation layer. Make sure you have a dry wicking kind of layer. Make sure you have a couple different layers that keep your body as insulated, as dry as possible, but also don't allow the heat to build up so extremely that you're gonna, have heat stroke or heart attack or something in 30-degree weather. Because when you're hiking around, especially if you're doing like backcountry or some shit, when you're hiking around, you'll start fucking sweating your ass off wearing your full get up, your jacket, your layers, your bandana, your beanie, your goggles, everything. When you have it all on, you can really get overly warm, overly warm for sure. Mammoth Mountain, I had just mentioned Chloe Kim, that's where she was from. Vail, Colorado, Vail, the fucking monopoly on ski resorts in North America, I think Vail owns it's over 50%, I'm pretty sure, of all ski resorts in North America. Something of that nature. They are considered one of the biggest, best ski resorts in the U.S. I've never been to the one in Colorado, which is what this is about. They own a resort here in Michigan, which is a really small one in Brighton, Michigan, called Mountain Brighton. And, they're like, you can buy a season pass for fucking an arm and a leg, but that season pass works if you come out to Colorado. It's like, yeah, I can't just fucking come out to Colorado. You know how expensive shit is? Fucking ridiculous. You think I'm just going to be able to fucking travel around the country and ski like a fucking bum? I wish I could. I wish I had the money, the support, the, just ability to just travel around the country and, whether it's just hiking or whether it's fucking, whatever, canoeing, kayaking, fucking snowboarding, wherever I want to for a year. Even just a year of that shit would be great. But maybe someday I'll be able to do something like that. Breckenridge in Colorado. It has a high base elevation and one of the longest ski seasons in the country. Some of these places that are in the higher mountains, especially out in like Colorado-ish area, or some of the places that get just fucked with snow, just get raked with snow all the time, they can run from like September, October into May, June of the next year. Some of these places only take 2 to 3 months off and they're running again. And during that free time, a lot of skiers or snowboarders, they'll do things like mountain bike or hike or, enjoy the in-between season that's a little bit nicer, a little bit warmer when there's not as much snow around. Heavenly Ski Resort in California, located in Lake Tahoe, where there's a bunch of fucking resorts. This resort has thousands of acres of skiable terrain, so check that one out. And then Sugarloaf. Sugarloaf is one on the other side of the country compared to the rest of these. It is in Maine, Maine's largest ski resort, with 1,360 acres of skiable terrain and a lot of cool backcountry shit too. If you watch some videos, there's a lot of cool backcountry, off the beaten path, as I've said a few times today, off the beaten path runs that people have done. There's a lot of tree runs. You can get some crazy tree runs where like you cannot get going fast because you're going to be dodging trees, ducking trees, and if you hit one, chances are things are not going to turn out very well. And that's a big aspect. That's a big thing that has happened to a lot of people over the years. Even at smaller ski resorts is a huge danger that people run into. If you lose control or you're just going too fast and you run into a tree of some sort, you can get some serious injuries. You can get compression injuries to your chest that can completely, crush your organs, stop your heart, puncture your fucking lungs with your rib that gets broken. Or you can hit your head, and hitting your head is probably the worst thing. And that, can cause traumatic brain injuries. That can cause complete decimation of your brain to a point where you're put into a medically induced coma. And that can definitely cause death too. Fatalities are common, unfortunately common in extreme snow sports such as snowboarding and skiing. And so those are a couple of the resorts in the U.S. There are resorts outside the U.S. too, and those include ones in Canada like Whistler, Red, Revelstoke, Fernie, Banff, which is Lake Louise, which I would love to go to. Whistler and Lake Louise look incredible, look awesome. I'd love to get up to Canada to do some sort of snowboarding at some point. In Chile, there's Portillo and Chian, I think are how you pronounce those, Portillo and Chian. In Japan, there's Niseko, Rusutsu, Haikuba, and Furano. And in Europe, there is Zermatt and Chamonix, which is one is in France and the other's in Germany, maybe. But there's a couple out there, too. There's definitely a fuck ton around the world, obviously. There's a shit ton in the United States just as it is, and there's definitely a ton in Canada, a ton in Japan, a lot in Europe. There's just so many around the world. So if you like skiing, if you like snowboarding, get the fuck out there. Go check out some different places. I understand the comfort, the reliability of going to like, hey, this is my place, this is the place I grew up at, but get out there. Go check out some different places, go to a different state and, check out how they run their resorts. Check out the different places that you can go every winter and really enjoy yourself with this sport that you're doing, this sport that you're enjoying. Get out there and enjoy new things because, variety is the spice of life, and having the new angles, the new aspects, the new, runs to really embrace, consistency is awesome, but having the same thing over and over and over and over and over makes it boring. It does make it boring after a while, and you need that variety to really spice it up and to make it more interesting and to really continue the enjoyment year after year after year. So do that. And that's going to kind of conclude our history of snowboarding. I know we didn't talk about it as much as we did with skiing, but they kind of wrap into each other, and the history of snowboarding is quite a bit smaller. And though I didn't talk about all the events that are featured in X Games and the Olympics, they are very similar in a lot of ways to the skiing events. There's slaloms, there is half pipes, there is, border cross, there is different downhill trick events, there is terrain parks that they do trick events on. And with all of these, they run similar risks and they have the same type of judging as the skiing events did. So I didn't cover the events again because they're very similar in aspects to the skiing events. But the history of snowboarding is much shorter and much newer than skiing. So it took a little bit less time to cover. But with that, we're going to bounce from snowboarding into different snow sports and kind of the more interesting and odd part of this episode. So the first one we're going to talk about is sledding. I know, odd enough. The first snow of the winter for many marks the start of the long-awaited sled riding season. Whether there's a few inches or multiple feet of snow on the ground, children and adults everywhere are always eager to button up their snow pants and spend hours outside on their sleds. For hundreds of years, people have been sled riding in some capacity. Despite the fact that people have grown to know sled riding as a snowy sport, the first documented sled ride occurred in around 1900 BC in the sandy deserts of ancient Egypt. The sleds were made out of carved rock and were used for both convenience and labor. So to move things around, as a lot of times it had been, but they also apparently rode them down the hills just for shits and giggles. The first recreational sled riding event was held by the Russian aristocrats in the 1950s. The Russian youth would build wooden tracks down hills and carve sleds out of large blocks of ice. So kind of vice versa. They would build tracks using wood, and then they would make these sleds out of ice that they would ride down in. Although extremely dangerous, it was a prime source of fun amidst the harsh winters. Sledding would then come to America in the 1860s when a man named Henry Morton invented the wooden toboggan. Since then, sleds have evolved in many different shapes and styles. There are 6 different categories of sleds nowadays: foam sleds, runner sleds, toboggans, discs, tubes or inflatable sleds, and backcountry sleds. From carved rocks to lunch trays, sleds have certainly come a long way. Everyone has a favorite sled that they have found most effective in the wintertime, and it all comes down to making lifelong memories with friends and family while riding that sled. So other winter sports, we already talked about alpine skiing, we talked about snowboarding, ice hockey. It's a fast-paced team sport played on ice, hugely popular in Canada, the United States, and parts of Europe. And obviously, it's kind of popular around the entire world. There's usually ice hockey leagues in almost every country, every continent and everything. Someone has played ice hockey at some point. Pretty much everyone listening, I'm guessing, knows what hockey is when I say hockey or ice hockey. There's the National Hockey League. There's the Amateur Hockey League. There are, Swedish hockey leagues, Norwegian hockey leagues. There's so many hockey leagues around the world, and the National Hockey League is obviously a huge one. Hockey is also one of those events that's featured in the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. So it's interesting to see how big hockey has become too. It's one of the professional sports that definitely involves the winter. People all the time, you think about growing up, if you're in the northern areas of the country, if you're in Canada, you probably knew someone who had a dad or a parent that would make a pond, or they had a pond that would freeze over in the winter, and they'd set up some sort of rink on there that you could ice skate on and play some hockey on, get some nets, get some sticks, get a team together and play a little 3-on-3 or something of that nature. And then there's figure skating. It's definitely known in a similar way as ice hockey is, but figure skating, you're riding on the ice, you're doing tricks, you're doing dancing, you're doing, collaboration with another person in pairs. It's a mix of artistry and athleticism with singles, pairs, and ice dance competitions, and has been around for quite a long time, just as well as ice hockey has. In reality, people were probably figure skating before they were playing ice hockey, because you had to be able to slide around on the ice to be able to play ice hockey as it was. So very similar timing, I would have to imagine, with ice hockey and figure skating. Figure skating, once again, is another one that is included in the Olympics. A lot of these, I think that I'm going to say, are included in the Olympics in some way. Cross-country skiing we kind of talked about, but cross-country compared to downhill skiing, cross-country is sometimes on flatland, sometimes uphill. You're moving a distance across, a section of land over snowy terrain that, it really tests the endurance and the abilities of the skier as it is. And usually you might do like a cross-country marathon or something of that nature. You're going to cover quite a long distance over that snowy terrain in a variety of different elements and aspects. And then the weird one that kind of combines with cross-country is the biathlon. The biathlon combines cross-country skiing with rifle shooting. So you cross-country from these point to point to checkpoint. And when you reach these checkpoints, you have to shoot a couple of targets or a number of targets, and you need both speed and precision to really become a great athlete in biathlon performances. It's one that I remember seeing on Family Guy. Meg was doing some fucking biathlon thing, and it was just like, I didn't even realize it was a real sport until sometime around then. And it kind of blew my mind. I just never understood. I guess back in the day, people were hunting. They might have been hunting on skis, doing cross country and shooting. But like, what made it a competition sport that was viewed as something that needed to be in the Olympics? I don't know. It's interesting. Then there's bobsledding. Teams race down an icy track in a streamlined sled, reaching speeds of up to 90 plus miles an hour, which is similar to luge and skeleton, but there's a couple of different aspects. Luge is usually a single person. Skeleton is a single person compared to bobsledding, which is a team. Luge athletes race down feet first on a small sled down this icy track at high speeds, usually around the same type, which is 80, 90 plus miles an hour sometimes. In particular, there's been a couple that were pretty fucking fast, have reached, close to 100 plus miles an hour, and that's so sketchy, so crazy. Skeleton is exactly the same thing as luge, but you're going down head first instead of feet first. And then there's curling. Fucking curling. As stupid as curling seems to a lot of people, it's pretty interesting. It's definitely a strategic game where you have to maneuver not only your own pucks into the right, place, your own stone into the right place, but you also have to knock your competition's stones out of the target too, to be able to maximize the amount of points that you get, and obviously be able to win these sets and eventually win the game as a total. So curling's known as chess on ice. This strategic game involves sliding stones on a sheet of ice toward a target. And like I said, you use these stones, you try to get them into this target, and then your opponent has the ability to knock your stones out, as well as you have the ability to knock your opponent's stones out of this target area. So those were some kind of common different winter sports, and now let's look at some lesser known winter sports that some are kind of ridiculous, some are a little weird, some are just kind of common things that you don't think about too often. So number one would be ski joring. I want to say it's joring, Joring, but a lot of the times it's like like fjord, which is FJORD, so I think it's joring, ski joring. A skier is pulled by a dog, horse, or motor vehicle over snow-covered terrain. So you're just like being towed behind some sort of animal or some sort of vehicle, and that's ski joring. So it's just like, wakeboarding or, water skiing, but you're on snow instead of on the water. Snow kayaking, number two, racing down snowy slopes in a kayak, navigating turns and jumps. And people look fucking ridiculous doing some snow kayaking, but it looks like it could be a lot of fun. But if you crash, if you get going a little too fast, you might get really fucked up. Snowcross, high-speed snowmobile racing on tracks with jumps, tight turns, and rough terrain. And snowcross looks like it would be a lot of fun. Snowcross looks dangerous as fuck. If you flip that thing or you crash, someone could land right the fuck on top of you and crush your fucking face. So not my go-to, but snowmobiles are fun, but doing jumps and shit, I don't need any of that. I'd just like to fucking cruise on one. It'd be a lot of fun. Ice sailing or ice yachting, using wind-powered sleds with sails to glide across frozen lakes. So it's not a boat in the water. It is on top of the ice that has frozen over, and you're using some sort of sled that has a sail on it that is getting pulled by wind, and you're using this sled and the sail to pull yourself across this frozen lake. And I think there's competitions or races that they do where you have to be able to, obviously win somehow. You have to be able to get pulled the fastest, have the most aerodynamic sled and sail, and, just hope yours goes a little bit faster than the rest of them. Ice climbing, which is, it's similar to other aspects of climbing, rock climbing or mountain climbing or whatever it might be. Scaling frozen waterfalls or steep ice formations using specialized gear. This is the kind of thing that mountaineers definitely do quite often, especially if you're going up like Mount Everest or Annapurna or wherever it might be. If you're doing that kind of shit, you're probably going to do some sort of ice climbing in a way, one way or another. It might not be direct 90 plus degree ice climbing. You might go up something that's, 70, 80 degrees, but it's straight frozen over and you have to use an ice pick and, crampons to be able to fucking even scale up this thing. So Shovel racing. Shovel racing is one that is kind of just ridiculous. Competitors race downhill sitting on a snow shovel, and this was once featured on the X Games as a competition on there. So if you think about it, someone's sitting on a shovel, the front is coming out between their legs so they can steer, and you just fucking lean back a tiny bit so you don't catch an edge on the front, and you go as fast as you can down the hill. Winter swimming, weird one to me. Endurance swimming in icy waters, often associated with polar plunges, but some people do it as like, you have to swim this distance, you have to stay in there for this long, you have to be able to do this or that or this or that. And it's just kind of crazy to me that people are like, yeah, let's fucking go and hang out in this 40-degree water when the air temperature is 22 degrees or something. Doesn't sound like a good time. Sounds like hypothermia just waiting to fucking happen. And the reason that people started doing this, I have no clue. Number 8, snow kiting. A mixture of skiing or snowboarding while being pulled by a kite across snowy landscapes. Number 9, this one was the one that came up and I was like, oh, fuck yeah, that'd be awesome. That seems like it would be cool, but it's not as intense as I had hoped. It does look like it would be a lot of fun, but not as intense as I had hoped. Yukigassen is, I think, how you pronounce it. Yukigassen. Yukigassen. A competitive snowball fight originating in Japan, complete with teams and structured rules. And there's like, if you've ever seen a paintball competition, it's kind of like that, but with snowballs. So not obviously shooting snowballs, but they're throwing snowballs, but they have these barriers that they can duck behind and hide behind. And it's a mixture of that and like capture the flag. Each end has a flag, and the point is to get one of your members of your team over to that flag without getting hit with a snowball. If you get hit with a snowball, you're eliminated. I don't think it's like dodgeball where like if somehow you catch a snowball, you get a teammate that comes back in and the other team has someone eliminated. I don't think it's like that, but it looked like it would be a lot of fun, and people were just running up and belting people in the fucking face and the body like 12 inches away, 6 inches away, fucking right next to them. They're getting them. But they also wear these face masks, so you don't really get them in the face. You might get them in the back of the head or something, but not really directly in the fucking, like, in the eyeball or the nose or some shit like that. And then there is a kind of another skiing sport, Nordic combined, a hybrid sport that blends cross-country skiing and ski jumping. So those are a couple lesser-known sports in the wintertime, a couple ones that are kind of funky, kind of weird, kind of different. But we've tackled skiing, we've tackled snowboarding, we've tackled some other lesser-known sports, and now we are going to tackle our main marks. All right, so number 1. Archaeologists have discovered ancient ski fragments in Russia, Sweden, and Norway dating back as far as 6,000 BCE, which makes them over 8,000 years old. The oldest known ski fragments were found in Lake Sindor, Russia, and believed to be over 8,000 years old. Number 2. Modern skiing would become popular in the late 19th century and early 20th centuries, with Europeans adapting skis for better control and turns, and being able to take on steeper, more mountainous terrain. Number 3, the first official ski resort was reported to be St. Anton in Austria in 1901, but one has been also considered being around a little bit longer and considers itself to be the oldest world ski destination, which is St. Moritz in Switzerland, and that one started doing winter tourism in 1864, though it's unclear how long people were actually skiing there, but St. Moritz would host the Winter Olympics in 1928 and would open its first ski school in 1929. Number 4, extreme styles of the sport of skiing and snowboarding include ski runs and snowboard runs of over 45 to 60 degrees. These runs are incredibly vertical, incredibly steep, and require such immaculate skill and control. And some famous extreme skiing and snowboarding locations include Alaska's Chugach Mountains, the Swiss Alps and the French Alps. Places like La Grave in France are definitely huge in the extreme skiing and snowboarding world. Number 5. The X Games, beginning in the mid to late 1990s, had a huge influence on freestyle and extreme skiing, along with tricks and, kind of the more, the more explosive styles of skiing and snowboarding. The events that they included that kind of focused on tricks and the craftsmanship and the innovation of the sport really started pushing it into the limelight and into the forefront, and really helped bring it up in popularity as these visually stimulating and entertaining maneuvers were being made by snowboarders and skiers. The half-pipe snowboarding and skiing, the slopestyle, big air, all these different events that they have nowadays were huge in influencing the popularity and the culture that kind of surrounds these sports. And number 6, it's going to be kind of a long one, but new info. Mia Brooks is the youngest snowboard world champion in history. The British snowboard won the women's slopestyle event at the 2023 FIS Freestyle Ski and Snowboarding World Championship in Georgia, not the United States, but the country, at the age of 16 years and 39 days. So as a 16-year-old, she won the world championship in skiing. Crazy fucking nonsense. I can't even imagine as a 16-year-old, which, I mean, people go to the Olympics and stuff, but not only being, an Olympic champion, but being able to do something like win a world championship event with people of all ages from everywhere in the world trying to compete. Crazy. Brooks landed a cab 1440 double grab, a complicated move that involves 4 full rotations in the air for a winning score of 91.38. In 2023, Gaon Choi, Gaon Choi became the youngest X Games snowboard halfpipe champion at the age of 14. 14! Choi landed a frontside 1080 in her 4th run and 3 different 900s in her 3rd run. Just this crazy little broad doing flips and spins and fucking whatever else in the halfpipe. Like, I can take on anyone. I can do this. I've been doing this since I was literally 18 months old. Let me fucking go. And then Franhoy van Almen, this month in 2025, February of 2025, the 23-year-old Swiss skier won the downhill World Alpine Skiing Championship. He beat Vincent Kreischmeyer of Austria by 24 hundredths of a second. So just the slimmest, by a hair, beat him. He became the youngest man to win the downhill World Alpine Skiing Championship in over 36 years. Crazy stuff people are doing at such a young age and just mastering these sports, which, don't get me wrong, these are some of, especially the extreme styles that a lot of these people are doing and the tricks and things. It's a sport that is geared toward people who are younger, more durable, more nimble, more agile, and, don't take as much of a toll on their bones and their ligaments. So it makes sense that people are doing it, but 14, 16, holy hell, young 20s, sure. Fucking teenager, just into your teen years at 14, that's crazy. Beyond that, I did want to mention one other dude. I'm mentioning kind of slalom style and downhill skiing earlier, some of the alpine skiing events and the tragedies that can occur. And there was one in particular, I watched a video on YouTube. Man, this guy. So this guy, his name's Gernot Reinstadler. He was born in 1970 and would live until 1991 when he was 21. Not even 21, he was 20. He was an Austrian ski racer, and he was regarded among the most promising young talents in the Austrian downhill team in the early 1990s. In 1991, he would crash while entering the final S, or the finish S, of the Laberhorn race. He lost control and crashed into the safety nets at full speed, where one of his skis became trapped. This would significantly, he suffered a significant pelvic fracture and severe internal injuries and bleeding, and external injuries and bleeding. If you watch the video, viewer discretion fucking advised for sure. It's so graphic. This man, his ski gets caught when he catches the safety net on the side, and it rips his fucking legs apart. I mean, he is doing the splits 180 degrees, his legs are spread apart, and he's not fucking trying to. His legs are torn the fuck apart. His hip is completely dislocated. His internal injuries are incredible. The snow is covered in blood, and he would end up dying. He would end up dying because of this crash, and it's kind of horrific to watch, but it's interesting to watch some of these crashes and some of these different things that happened. And actually, while we're talking about this, I did want to mention one more. So this guy, unfortunately, Gernot Reinstadler, incredibly horrific crash that happened during alpine skiing, he would end up passing away. And then more recently, that was 1991. In 2010, in the luge event, there was a gentleman that was luging in Canada where they were holding the Olympics. And just before the Olympics got underway, just a couple hours before, at 10, 11 in the morning, somewhere around there, while descending on the luge track in Whistler, British Columbia, Nodar Kumaritashvili collided with an ice wall. So he was going right around 90 miles an hour. He came around one of the final turns on the track, and his luge lost control. He went up the side of the luge track, and he did this flip where his body was thrown over the other wall of the luge track, and he would collide with a solid metal pole, a fucking solid metal post at 90 miles an hour, head first, neck first. He would die immediately, pretty much. Immediate fatality, crushing of his spine, of his brain. Such an incredibly graphic and horrific thing to have happen to this dude. You can actually find the coroner's report if you want to look into it by any means on Google. If you just type in luge rider dies 2010, or if you type in coroner report for Nodar Kumaritashvili, it's just, you can watch the whole video on YouTube too, but it's not graphic in the sense of gory or bloody, but if you know what happens, it's just tragic to watch. It's incredibly sad. They immediately started doing chest compressions on him, but I mean, his head was fucked. His brain was gone. His spinal cord was completely, fucking torn apart. I can't imagine dying like that, but the one thing I could say is he probably went very fast. He knew he was losing it, and before he could even realize what was really happening to him, he was dead. So that's gonna, with that sadness, with those depressing examples of fatal crashes and tragedies in some of these snow sports, that's going to take us out of our main marks and into the final takeaways. All right, so both skiing and snowboarding have evolved from ancient survival techniques into global sporting events. Global sports that everyone knows, skiing with its thousands of years of history continues to thrive in both competition and recreational forms, while snowboarding, a much newer sport coming from the 1960s or so, has quickly become a dominant force in the winter sports culture. Today, both activities coexist in ski resorts worldwide, offering diverse experiences for winter sports enthusiasts. And if you're not enthused by skiing or snowboarding, go check out a different winter sport such as curling or, luging, bobsledding, ice skiing, ice yoring, do some snow kiting, do some other things like ice climbing, some shovel racing, go winter swimming if you really want to, or just get some friends together and have a good old Yuki Gassen, competitive snowball fight. Fucking just do that shit. That sounds like a great time. But if you're not enthused by any of that, maybe you were enthused by today's episode though. And if you were, please go take the time to rate and review. Give me a 5-star rating. Give me a good review. I appreciate the fuck out of all of you who take the time to do that. It's free and it helps the show so much. Beyond words is how much it helps the show. It's undescribable the amount that it really helps the show and helps me. It really continues to push me forward. The feedback is just, it makes me smile. Even if it's bad feedback, even if it's like, hey, I hated this about your show, it makes me smile because I know people are listening and have that feedback or really want to provide it in some sort of fashion, even if it's because they're fucking pissed off and angry because they hated the show so much. They wanted to provide that feedback, and I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. If you like the show, go give it a 5-star rating. If you hated the show, give it 5 stars and tell me why you hated it. And beyond that, please follow us on Instagram. It's Beneath the Shadows Podcast on Instagram. You can find us on Patreon as well, though there's not as many Patreon episodes that are going to be coming out soon. I need more support to be able to do Patreon episodes continuously and to really pour my time and effort into those along with everything else that I do. With the main show and bonus episodes that are going to be coming out, I really want to focus on those instead of putting my time into Patreon exclusive content where I have no one supporting me at all. I'd rather them be available for everyone to listen to. And if you like it, you can support me on Patreon. You know, it's $3 a month to get all the episodes in the catalog. Those are always going to be ad free. And when it gets down to it and I have more of a following and more of a community around me, I would like to build the Patreon side to have Patreon exclusive content that will only be found on there. But for now, I'm going to be doing these regular episodes and bonus episodes every couple of weeks and regular episodes every week. So check those out, and I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Next week, please come back as we are going to be diving into something completely different. We are going to be going around the world to many different locations to check out death rituals throughout history. So death rituals throughout history, throughout the world. We're going to check how people treat their dead, have encased their dead, have eaten their dead, have done so many different things with their dead relatives, friends, these corpses that they have. What do they do to embrace them, to not support them, to celebrate them is the word I'm looking for, to celebrate them and to move them into their afterlife with the best case possible? We're going to look into those death rituals and what different places around the world really think about death and how they handle death. So if you're interested in that, please stop back next week. Next week, the episode will probably be out a day late or so. I know this one's coming about 3 days late. Next week's will be about a day late or so. Mental health has been a little back and forth and haven't had as much motivation, so I appreciate the support and the patience from people who are listening. I'm, always working on myself, always working on things like the show, and I appreciate the support even with delayed episodes such as this one. So if you like the show, once again, please give it a rating and review. Come back next week and check out the show on death rituals throughout the world. And beyond that, stay safe. Have yourself a wonderful fucking weekend, a wonderful fucking week. Enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the snow, enjoy the weather, enjoy the outdoors as much as you can. Get out and do some snowboarding or skiing or luging or sledding or whatever it might be. And have a great fucking week. Have a great time. Enjoy your life. Thank you for being here. My name is Travis Fenn. This is Beneath the Shadows. Peace out, y'all. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow.